At the Christmas dinner table, my drunk uncle suddenly turned on my mom. "You know, sis, you're pretty shameless, aren't you? Every year, I give Anna $500 as a Christmas gift, but you've never given my daughter anything." The rest of the family had clearly been holding this in for a while. Since someone had said it out loud, they all jumped in at once to accuse my mother of always taking and never giving. They called her selfish and stingy. My mother suddenly grabbed me by the hair and slapped me. "Anna, why didn't you tell me you got money from them? Have you been hiding cash? You made me look like I can't return a simple favor. Happy now?" I had clearly given her everything I ever received. With the way she twisted the truth, I ended up becoming the liar in everyone's eyes. As a result, later that night, when a fishbone got lodged in my throat and I choked, everyone just sat there laughing and watching. They were convinced that not only had I lied about the gift money, but I was also trying to scam them for medical bills. As soon as my uncle, Noel Macy, said that, the rest of the family piled on. "Seriously, do you even get how give and take works? You've been taking advantage of us for years. Gotta hand it to you, Kate. You really know how to work the system. All smiles when your own kid gets gifts, but won't spend a penny on our kids." They had clearly been waiting for a chance to belittle her. Their words dripped with sarcasm. My mother, Kate Fisher, turned pale. Suddenly, she grabbed me by the hair and slapped me. "Anna, why didn't you tell me you got money from them? Have you been hiding cash? You made me look like I can't return a simple favor. Happy now?" My head was spinning. I wanted to tell her I had already given her every cent I received. She cut me off with a fierce glare. Then, she grabbed my arm and dragged me into the bedroom. "Anna, don't you have any sense at all?" She kept her voice low, and her fingers dug painfully into my arm. "You've collected 5,000 or 6,000 as gifts over the years. They're obviously trying to get that money back now. When we go out there, say that you kept the cash to yourself and spent it. That way, they can't ask for it anymore." I did not want to lie. I did not want to be the bad kid everyone looked down on. I did not want this moment to be the reason I could not hold my head high. Seeing that I did not agree, Mom gave me a look of utter disappointment. "Anna, what does someone your age need pride for? Money is what matters. I'm doing this for your own good. I've been saving all that money for you. It'll be yours someday anyway." She always thought children did not need dignity. When the school organized potlucks, she would send me empty-handed every time and tell me to mooch off the snacks from other kids. She said it saved money. When I ended up being excluded by my friends, she would just click her tongue and say I did not have any friends because I was antisocial. As for the gift money, I clearly remembered that Mom went shopping every year after the holidays and spent it. She never hesitated when it came time to pay for the designer bags or expensive clothes for herself. That money was probably long gone. I tried to say something, but just as I opened my mouth, I felt a sharp pain in my throat. I was seized by fits of coughing. When Mom had slapped me earlier, I was eating fish. The fishbone must have gotten stuck. Seeing my face turning red and my eyes filling with tears, she trembled in excitement instead of feeling concerned for me. "Anna, that's some good acting. Keep that up when we go back out later. Just say I punished you, and they'll feel too awkward to ask for the money back." I was not pretending. I was genuinely in pain. I could feel my throat swelling up. Breathing normally was a struggle. She dragged me back to the dinner table. She grabbed my hair and forced my head up so everyone could see my tear-streaked face. I punished her for keeping the money to herself. But she's already spent everything she got. So, there's no way to pay any of you back. Clearly, no one was happy about that much money going down the drain. Mom could see it too. She suddenly grabbed a wooden serving spoon from the table and started hitting me with it repeatedly. The air whistled with each strike. When the spoon broke, Mom pretended that it pained her to hurt me. "Anna, I don't have a choice. You see how upset everyone is. What else am I supposed to do if they won't forgive you?" Her voice was shrill and dripped with hidden meaning. Sure enough, our relatives quickly tried to calm her down because they felt put on the spot. "Hey, it's Christmas. Don't hit the kid like that. Let's just forget about it. She's learned her lesson now. It was just a gift, anyway. It's not like we'd actually ask for it back." Seeing that her plan had worked, Mom set down the broken spoon. Just then, my father, Adam Fisher, returned home. The relatives immediately started talking over each other to fill him in on everything that had just happened. His expression darkened. He dropped the gift he had bought for me onto the floor. "Anna, did you really keep that money to yourself?" The first thing Dad usually did when he returned home was pat my head gently. However, he kept his distance today. He did not even seem to notice my swollen face. I did not want Dad to misunderstand me. I did not want him to think I was a bad kid. I was afraid he would not love me anymore. Just as I was about to tell the truth, Mom suddenly dug her fingers into my waist and whispered a threat in my ear. Anna, do you want Dad and me to divorce? I've sacrificed so much for you and for this family. Can't you help me just this once? She was right. Dad had a strong sense of justice. He hated dishonesty and schemes more than anything. If he found out what Mom had done, they would definitely fight. Maybe they would even get divorced. I did not want to be a child from a broken home. I wanted our family of 3 to stay whole. And Mom. She used to be gentle. She used to pull me into her arms and let me cling to her. My grandmother told me that when I was born, Mom lost her career. She spent every day buried in cooking, cleaning, and other household chores. That was why she had become so anxious and bitter. It was all my fault. I owed her. I clenched my fists, nodded, and admitted to everything. The relatives shook their heads as they tried to smooth things over. Anna, I've known you since you were little. I thought there must be some misunderstanding, but now that you've admitted it. What happened to you, kid? It was just like they said. I was a bad kid and a liar. But at least I had saved my family. Mom breathed a sigh of relief beside me. Dad, on the other hand, was so angry that he flipped the Christmas dinner table over. Then, he tore apart the princess dress he had bought for me and stomped on it. It was the latest design. He had bought it because I had lingered on it a little too long in the store. He had spent half a month's salary to buy it for me. I forced back my tears and made myself look away. What hurt even more was my throat. Those hits from my mother had driven the fishbone deeper. Every breath now felt like torture. My teacher had said that this kind of situation was very dangerous. I crept over to Dad. I was careful and hesitant. With my head lowered, I tugged lightly at his sleeve and managed to force some words out. Dad, there's a fishbone stuck in my throat. Can you take me to the hospital? Dad stared at me. Normally, he would have panicked. Although at this moment, he simply snorted. Anna, has lying become a habit for you now? That's sea base. There are no bones in it. I stood there frozen. The feeling of something being stuck in my throat was getting worse. I could not be wrong. I specifically told your mom to buy this fish for dinner. There's no way it has bones. A flash of guilt flickered in Mom's eyes. She opened her mouth, but in the end, she said nothing. At this point, the truth was obvious to me. Dad had given her the money, but to pocket the difference, she must have bought a cheaper fish instead. Even with everything unraveling, she chose to stay silent. My throat kept swelling. I could barely breathe. I thought, I'm sorry, Mom. I can't cover for you this time. Dad, I'm not lying. There's really something stuck in my throat. I wanted to prove it, but the fish had been thrown off the table. It was scattered all over the floor. I searched through the mess for what felt like forever before finally finding a piece with fishbones still in it. But before I could pick it up and show it to my father, he grabbed me by the arm and pulled me close. Anna, you really don't need to put on such a pitiful act. Then, he pulled out a pack of wet wipes from his pocket. Wipe your hands. Go to your room and think about what you've done. He still thought I was lying. But when he saw the tears in my eyes, he hesitated. He pulled out his phone, turned on the flashlight, and was ready to take a look. I opened my mouth. Just then, the relatives around the table started laughing. Look at that. She's got her dad fooled again. Adam, you're just enabling her. If this works, she'll keep lying next time too. Dad's face darkened instantly. He shoved me aside and walked out to the porch for a cigarette. He was a doctor. One look was all it would have taken for him to see how swollen my throat was. Yet no matter how I called after him, he did not turn back. After Dad left, Mom hurriedly shoved me toward the bedroom. She knew the fish she had bought had fishbones. But to her, even if something really was stuck, it was no big deal. She thought swallowing a few times would make it go down. After all, she had never heard of anyone actually choking to death on a fishbone. My suffering was better than her being embarrassed in front of everyone. I was desperate. I cried and grabbed at the clothes of my uncles, aunts, and cousins. I begged them to take me to the hospital. All I got in return was laughter. Anna, you're so manipulative at such a young age. Wasn't it enough to scam us out of all that gift money over the years? Are you trying to scam us for medical bills too? Just go to your room and think about what you've done. If you behave, maybe your dad will let you come out later to watch the fireworks. No one believed me. To them, I was just a bad kid. Mom pushed me into the bedroom. She hesitated for a second, then brought in a plate of pasta and set it on the nightstand. Anna, if something really is stuck, just chew and swallow some food. It'll push it down. As for what happened, I know it's not fair to you, but you can't blame me. Who knew it would blow up like this? You're just a kid. Losing a little dignity doesn't matter. Just help me out this time, okay? I thought, but Mom, I'm not just losing dignity. I'm losing my life. The door slammed shut. It was locked from the outside. I beat my palms against it until they were red and swollen, but no one came. I did not want to die. I was still so young. I wanted to watch fireworks with my parents. I grabbed the plate of pasta and started stuffing it into my mouth in the hopes that it could save me. I swallowed one mouthful after another. In the end, it all got stuck in my throat. My breathing grew heavier and heavier. When my consciousness returned, I was finally breathing easy. I looked down at my body lying on the bed. For the first time, I felt that being dead made things easier. The locked door could not hold me anymore. I drifted out to the living room. Dad was going around the table and toasting each relative one by one. A child's behavior reflects badly on the parents. Anna made a mistake. She's taken a lot of money from all of you over the years. I'll pay it all back. Outside, the porch was littered with cigarette stubs and ashes. We were not a wealthy family. My mother did not work. The mortgage, the car payments, and all the bills fell on my father's shoulders. Even though each gift was only $500, it had added to a significant amount over the years, especially when many people had contributed to it. He must have hesitated before making this decision. The relatives made a show of refusing him at first. How could we take back the money we gave to a child? But in the end, they still accepted it. I apologize on Anna's behalf. I hope this ends here. She's still young. She can change. I just don't want her growing up with a reputation that she can't shake. Even as a spirit, my heart ached. Angry as he was, my father had figured out a solution. He was trying his best to keep me from becoming a bad kid in everyone's eyes. After making the rounds with his drinks, Dad was visibly tipsy. Even so, he gave Mom $2,000. From now on, if Anna wants something, just get it for her. Maybe we've been too hard on her. That's why she ended up lying and taking the money. Mom's hand trembled slightly as she took the cash. Maybe the fear of almost being exposed earlier still lingered in her mind, or maybe she was moved by how my dad bowed and asked for forgiveness. Perhaps she felt a little guilty toward me. She walked over to the bedroom door with the money and knocked. Anna, what happened today really was on me. After I had you, I quit my job and lost my income. That's why I was trying so hard to scrape together money to please myself. Let's just put this behind us and go back to how things were. It'll be the three of us, like a normal family, okay? She kept talking about how she would spend the $2,000 just on me. When I did not respond, she assumed I was sulking. Her tone began to change. Anna, I already said I'm sorry. What else do you want from me? Are you seriously going to ignore me forever? Stop sulking, okay? I drifted beside her and said, Mom. She could not hear a thing. Mom had a prideful temper. She was not going to keep begging. She walked away and joined a card game. It was not until midnight, just before the fireworks, that she came to knock on the door again. There was still no response. Are you still sulking? Haven't you had enough? I just won some money from the game. Here, I'll give you $200. Think of it as a gift. You can spend it however you want. Happy now? Just as she finished saying that, Dad walked over. He leaned in and said quietly in her ear, 5 hours of reflection should be enough. Let her out. Make her something to eat later. She barely ate tonight. She's probably hungry. He paused for a moment. As for the lying, I'll deal with it after the holidays. I thought, but Dad, when you see my body, you'll know I wasn't lying. Fireworks were already going off outside. On the table sat a box of sparklers Dad had bought just for me. Mom and Dad glanced at the time and urged me to come out to watch the fireworks. I hovered nearby. I was frantic. In the end, they lost their patience and went to get the key. Anna, stop sulking already. Mom said. You're the one in the wrong here. Are you seriously throwing a tantrum? Dad added. There was a sharp click, and the door swung open. At that moment, fireworks burst across the sky outside. The dazzling light washed over their faces. Looking at my body on the bed, all anger instantly drained from their faces, leaving only shock and disbelief behind. The vibrant colors of the fireworks cast long, dancing shadows across the bedroom walls. Outside, the sky crackled with joy, but inside the small room, the silence was heavy, absolute, and cold. Adam's hand remained on the doorknob. His mouth was slightly open, his breath catching in his throat. Kate stood behind him, a tight, annoyed smile still plastered on her face, waiting for her daughter to jump up and demand the $200. Anna? Adam's voice was barely a whisper. The girl on the bed did not move. She lay on her side, her knees pulled slightly toward her chest in a defensive curl. Her face was turned toward the wall, but even in the dim, flashing light of the fireworks, the unnatural, bluish tint of her skin was unmistakable. On the nightstand, the plate of pasta sat half empty. Cold grease congealing over the thick noodles. Strands of pasta lay scattered on the pillow, mixed with a pale, dried smear of fluid that had escaped her lips. "Stop playing around, Anna," Kate said, though her voice lacked its usual sharp confidence. She took a step forward, pushing past Adam. "I told you, I'm not in the mood for games. Get up. Your dad bought you sparklers." Kate reached out and grabbed Anna's shoulder. The moment her fingers made contact, she flinched. The skin beneath the thin cotton pajama top was not warm. It felt like dough left out in the winter air, stiff, unyielding, and desperately cold. When Kate pulled, Anna's body rolled backward onto her back. Her head lolled to the side. Her eyes were half open, glassy and unseeing, staring blankly at the ceiling. Her lips were swollen, dark purple, and parted. "Adam." Kate's voice cracked. She stumbled backward, her heel catching on the edge of the rug. "Adam, what's wrong with her? Why is she looking at me like that?" Adam, the professional, the calm and collected doctor who had spent 15 years treating trauma patients, did not answer. He leaped across the room, his knees hitting the hardwood floor with a dull thud. His hands, usually so steady during surgery, were shaking so violently he could barely find her carotid artery. There was no pulse. Only the stiff, cool resistance of flesh that had long since surrendered to the dark. "No, no, no," Adam muttered. He threw his flashlight phone onto the bed, aiming the beam directly into Anna's open mouth. As a physician, he had seen death in every form. But looking down into his daughter's throat, his heart shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. Her tongue was swollen, pushed upward by a massive blockage. Deep within the darkened passage of her throat, visible even to the naked eye, the tissue was torn, blackened by internal bleeding, and obstructed by a thick mass of tangled pasta. And sticking out from the side of her swollen tonsil, piercing deep into the delicate lining of her esophagus, was a thick, curved, translucent needle. A fishbone. It was not the delicate, hair-thin bone of a sea bass. It was a thick, rigid rib bone of a cheap, bottom-feeding carp. "Ah." Adam let out a strangled sound, a noise that didn't sound human. His chest heaved as he shoved his fingers into her cold mouth, desperately trying to sweep the airway, knowing with absolute, terrifying certainty that it was hours too late. Rigor mortis had already begun to set in around her jaw. "Adam, do something. You're a doctor." Kate shrieked, clutching her head. "Why? Aren't you doing CPR? Wake her up. Tell her to stop doing this to me." Adam did not do CPR. He slowly withdrew his hand. He looked down at his fingers, which were smeared with dried, cold saliva and tiny flecks of blood. He slowly turned his head to look at Kate. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, and entirely empty of the warmth he had possessed just minutes before. "The sea base," Adam whispered, his voice dangerously quiet. "Kate. Where did you buy the sea base?" Kate's breath hitched. She took another step back, her back hitting the bedroom doorframe. I bought it at the market. Like you said. Sea base doesn't have ribs like this," Adam said. He reached down, and with a sickening, wet tear, he pulled the rigid bone from Anna's stiffening throat. He held it up in the light of the fireworks. It was nearly 2 inches long, thick, and pointed at both ends. "This is carp. You bought carp." Kate's face drained of what little color it had left. It was cheaper. I wanted to save some money for the holidays. I didn't think you knew," Adam said. The realization hit him like a physical blow, knocking the wind from his lungs. "You knew there were bones. When she said she was choking, you knew." I thought she was pretending. Kate screamed, tears finally spilling over her cheeks. She always exaggerates. She wanted to make me look bad in front of the family. How was I supposed to know she would actually choke? People swallow bones all the time. You just eat bread, you eat rice, it goes down. She tried, Adam said, his voice cracking as he looked at the plate of cold pasta. She tried to swallow it down. Because you locked her in here and told her to eat. He looked at the floor, where the discarded, torn princess dress lay just outside the threshold. He had stomped on it. He had called his daughter a liar. He had turned his back on her cries because he wanted to preserve his own pride. In front of his arrogant relatives. He had let his own daughter suffocate in the dark, just a few feet away from where he was toasted and praised for being an honorable man. I sat on the edge of the windowsill, swinging my legs. It was funny. For the past several hours, my throat had felt like it was on fire. I couldn't draw a single breath without feeling like a hot iron was being pressed into my chest. But now, I felt nothing. No pain, no cold, no fear. I watched as my father slowly got to his knees. He didn't cry immediately. The shock was too deep, a heavy anchor dragging him down into the depths of his own mind. The door to the bedroom was wide open now. The laughter from the living room had suddenly died down, replaced by a tense, awkward silence. Noel Macy, my drunk uncle, poked his head into the room, a half-empty beer bottle in his hand. Hey, what's the holdup? The grand finale of the fireworks is starting, and we're waiting to. His voice trailed off. His eyes fell on Adam, who was kneeling by the bed, and then on my body. What's going on? Noel asked, his drunken slurring instantly vanishing. Is she sick? She's dead, Adam said. He didn't turn around. His voice was completely flat, devoid of any human emotion. Come on, Adam, don't joke about stuff like that, Noel laughed nervously, taking a step back. Did she faint? Kids these days have no stamina. Probably. Just fainted from throwing a tantrum. Adam stood up. He turned around slowly. The expression on his face made Noel freeze. The raw, primal hatred radiating from my father was something none of us had ever seen before. She choked to death, Adam said, holding up his blood-stained hand. She told us she had a bone in her throat. She begged us to take her to the hospital. And what did you do, Noel? What did all of you do? Noel's face turned pale. We thought she was lying. She said she kept the gift money. If she could lie about something like that, how were we supposed to believe her about the fish? She didn't lie about the money, Adam said, his voice rising, vibrating with a terrifying, low resonance. Kate, who was huddled in the corner of the room clutching her knees, let out a sharp sob. Adam, please, not now, don't say it now. She didn't lie. Adam roared, turning on Kate. She didn't keep a single cent. Look at her clothes. Look at her shoes. Did she look like a kid who had $5,000 hidden away? She gave it all to you, didn't she, Kate? Every single dollar. The relatives had gathered at the doorway now. Aunt Sarah, Cousin Lily, and the others were all staring, their eyes darting between Adam, Kate, and my lifeless body on the bed. Kate, is this true? Aunt Sarah whispered, her face twisted in horror. Did you take the money? Kate covered her face, rocking back and forth. I had to. We have a mortgage. We have bills. Adam's salary isn't enough, and I have nothing of my own. I just wanted to buy a few nice things so people wouldn't look down on me. Is that so wrong? I'm her mother. What's hers is mine. You killed her, Adam said. He walked over to Kate, his shadow looming over her. You beat her to keep your own secrets. You made her take the blame so you wouldn't look like a thief. And then you let her choke to death so you wouldn't have to admit you bought cheap fish. I didn't mean to. Kate screamed, reaching out to grab Adam's trousers. Adam. You have to believe me. I love her. She's my daughter. I was just trying to teach her a lesson. I thought she was just being stubborn. Adam kicked her hand away. The movement was sharp, brutal, and completely unlike The gentleman he usually was. "Don't touch me," he said. He walked over to the bed, gently picked up my cold, heavy body in his arms, and walked out of the room. He didn't look at any of our relatives as he passed them. They scrambled out of his way like rats escaping a sinking ship, their faces filled with a mixture of terror, guilt, and the sudden, desperate urge to distance themselves from the tragedy. I floated behind my father, watching his face. He held me so tightly, as if he believed that if he just squeezed hard enough, his own warmth would seep back into my cold skin. But the cold was here to stay. The police arrived 30 minutes later, followed closely by an ambulance. The flashing red and blue lights painted the snow-covered front yard in garish colors. The neighbors peered out from behind their curtains, whispering to one another. The festive, joyful atmosphere of the neighborhood had been thoroughly shattered. The living room was quiet now. The half-eaten food on the floor had been stepped on, leaving greasy smears across the expensive carpet. 2 police officers stood in the hallway, taking statements. "We didn't know," Noel was saying to an officer, his voice trembling as he wiped sweat from his forehead. "The kid, she had a history of being dramatic. Her mother told us she was punishing her for stealing. We just thought it was a family matter. We didn't want to get involved." "A family matter?" the officer, a stern-faced woman with tired eyes, asked as she wrote in her notebook. "The child was begging to go to the hospital. She was physically bruised. There are wooden splinters on the floor from a broken spoon. Did any of you think to check on her? It wasn't our place." Aunt Sarah chimed in, her voice shrill with anxiety. "Kate was the one hitting her. We actually tried to stop her. Ask anyone here. We told Kate to stop." I sat on the kitchen counter, watching them scramble to paint themselves as innocent bystanders. It was fascinating to see how quickly their united front crumbled. Just an hour ago, they were a tight-knit family, laughing and drinking, united in their collective scorn for a selfish, stingy little girl. Now, they were tearing each other apart to save their own skin. "She's lying." Kate screamed from the couch, where she sat handcuffed. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared with tears and sweat. "Sarah, you were the one who said Anna was a parasite. You said she was taking advantage of your family. You put those ideas in my head." "I never said that." Sarah gasped, clutching her chest. "How dare you lie like that, Kate? You're a monster. You killed your own daughter to cover up your greed." "Enough," the officer said, closing her notebook with a sharp snap. "Save it for the station." Adam sat on the bottom step of the staircase, his head buried in his hands. He looked 10 years older. The neat, professional doctor was gone. In his place was a hollow, broken man. A paramedic walked out of the bedroom, carrying a black body bag on a gurney. As they wheeled it past Adam, he didn't look up. But his shoulders shook violently, and a low, dry sob escaped his throat. "I'm sorry, Anna," he whispered into his empty hands. "I'm so sorry." I drifted down from the counter and stood in front of him. I reached out and tried to touch his shoulder, but my hand passed straight through him, leaving only a faint, chilly draft. "It's okay, Dad," I said, though I knew he couldn't hear me. "You bought the dress. I know you loved me." But even as I said it, a part of me felt a cold, hard knot of resentment. He had loved his pride more. He had loved the opinion of these terrible people more than he had loved the truth. If he had just looked into my mouth, if he had just trusted his own eyes instead of their whispers, I would still be breathing. The weeks following my death were a blur of gray skies and endless rain. The funeral was a quiet, desolate affair. None of our relatives showed up. They were too afraid of the dirty looks from the neighbors and the press that had picked up the story. Christmas tragedy, 10-year-old chokes to death after parents ignore her pleas. Kate was held in county jail, awaiting trial for felony child abuse and involuntary manslaughter. Adam spent his days sitting in the dark living room of our empty house. He didn't go to work. The hospital had placed him on administrative leave, citing his unstable mental state. One afternoon, he finally decided to clean up the house. He moved like a ghost himself, his eyes vacant as he packed up my toys, my books, and my clothes into cardboard boxes. Each item he touched seemed to inflict a physical wound on him. He held my worn-out school bag to his face, breathing in the faint scent of pencil shavings and cheap strawberry eraser that still lingered on the fabric. As he was clearing out Kate's vanity table, his hand knocked over a small wooden jewelry box hidden deep in the back of her closet. The box fell to the floor, spilling its contents. Among the cheap costume jewelry and old lipsticks, several thick envelopes fell out. Adam knelt down to pick them up. His breath caught when he saw the writing on the front of the first envelope. It was in my neat, childish handwriting, for Mom's new bag. He opened it. Inside was a stack of crisp $100 bills. He quickly opened the other envelopes. For Dad's birthday, for Christmas dinner, for school fees. Each envelope contained hundreds of dollars, every single penny of the gift money I had received over the past 6 years. Completely intact, organized neatly by year. I had never spent a single cent of it. I had saved it all, hoping that one day, when Mom was stressed about money, I could give it to her and make her smile again. I had wanted to prove to her that I wasn't a burden, that I could help support our family too. Adam stared at the money. A low, agonizing wail broke from his chest. He clutched the envelopes to his heart, collapsing onto the floor among the scattered jewelry. She didn't spend it, he wept, his voice echoing through the empty house. She didn't spend a single dollar. My sweet girl, what did we do to you? I stood by the window, watching him sob. The tragedy of it was that it was all so useless now. The money was just paper. The truth was just words. Neither could bring the breath back into my lungs, or the warmth back into my bones. The trial of Kate Fisher began in the spring. The courtroom was packed with journalists, curious onlookers, and a few of our former neighbors. Kate sat at the defense table, wearing a plain gray suit. She had lost a significant amount of weight, her face hollow and pale. She looked like a shadow of her former self, but when she looked at the gallery, her eyes still held a desperate, defensive spark. The prosecution called Noel Macy to the stand. Mr. Macy, the prosecutor said, pacing back and forth. On the night of December 25th, did you see the defendant strike her daughter? Noel looked nervous. He adjusted his collar, sweating under the bright courtroom lights. Yes. She grabbed Anna by the hair and slapped her across the face. Hard. The kid was eating at the time. And did the defendant show any remorse or concern afterward? No, Noel said, eager to shift all the blame onto Kate. She drag-walked her into the bedroom. When they came back out, Anna was crying and couldn't breathe. But Kate kept hitting her with a wooden spoon. She told us she was teaching her a lesson. We wanted to stop her, but Kate was very aggressive. She told us to mind our own business. That's a lie. Kate screamed from her seat, slamming her hands on the table. You're a liar, Noel. You were the one who started it. You called me shameless. You pressured me. Silence in the court, the judge roared, slamming the gavel. Adam was called to the stand next. When he took the oath, he didn't look at Kate. He kept his eyes fixed on the empty space in the front row, where I would have sat if I were still alive. Dr. Fisher, the prosecutor said gently. As a medical professional, can you explain to the jury what happened to your daughter? Adam took a deep, shaky breath. Anna died of asphyxiation. A foreign object, specifically, a large, rigid fishbone, had lodged itself in her esophagus, causing severe swelling and local tissue trauma. When she was forced to eat solid food afterward, the food blocked her remaining airway entirely. And as her father, and a doctor, why did you not intervene? The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Adam closed his eyes. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Because I was blind. I let my pride, my anger, and the whispers of others cloud my judgment. I believed my wife when she said our daughter was a liar. I chose to protect our family's reputation rather than listen to my daughter's cries for help. He paused, his voice cracking. I am just as guilty of her death as my wife is. I failed her as a father, and I failed her as a doctor. A collective murmur ran through the courtroom. Kate stared at Adam, her mouth hanging open. Adam, how can you say that? We did it together, we were just trying to keep the family together. There is no family left, Kate, Adam said, finally looking at her. His eyes were cold, filled with a quiet, dead finality. We killed the only good thing we ever had. The jury did not take long to deliberate. Kate Fisher was found guilty on all charges. The judge sentenced her to 15 years in a maximum security prison, noting that her complete lack of empathy and systemic abuse of trust had directly resulted in the agonizing death of an innocent child. The relatives who had stood by and watched did not escape unscathed either. While they weren't criminally charged, the public backlash was devastating. Noel Macy lost his job at the local firm after a video of his defensive statement to the police was leaked online. Aunt Sarah and her family were forced to sell their house and move to another state to escape the constant harassment and shunning from the community. As for Adam, he sold our house. He gave all the money from the sale, along with the thousands of dollars I had saved in the envelopes, to a local charity that provided medical care and legal defense for abused and neglected children. On the day he left the city for good, he drove to the cemetery. The grass had finally grown over my grave, a neat, green blanket under the warm spring sun. The headstone was simple, Anna Fisher. A gentle soul, forever safe. Adam knelt by the stone. He placed a small, colorful box on the grass. It was the box of sparklers he had bought for me on that fateful Christmas night. He pulled out a lighter, ignited one of the sparklers, and watched as it crackled and showered the green grass with bright, golden light. "Happy late Christmas, Anna," he whispered, his voice trembling but peaceful. "I hope wherever you are, you can finally breathe." I stood beside him, watching the sparks fly and fade into the cool breeze. For the first time since that cold winter night, I felt a gentle warmth spreading through my chest. The anger, the fear, and the pain of my short life seemed to dissolve into the bright light of the sparkler. "Thank you, Dad," I whispered. As the last spark flickered and died, I turned away from the grave, letting the wind carry me up into the clear, endless blue sky. I was finally free.